They spend $40 billion a year making sure you never eat this plant. It grows for free in your driveway, between the cracks, unbothered, ancient, and more nutritious than anything sitting in your refrigerator right now. There is a plant crawling through the broken concrete outside your front door that contains more omega-3 fatty acids than salmon, not per pound, per leaf. It has been feeding human beings for 4,000 years. It survived the fall of empires, crossed oceans without a ship, and in 2022, scientists at Yale discovered it does something that no other plant on Earth can do, something they described in a peer-reviewed journal as a biological impossibility. The herbicide industry spends billions of dollars every single year making sure you never learn its name. In 1050 BC, someone living in northern Greece stored seeds in a clay vessel. They sealed it carefully, perhaps with intention, perhaps with urgency, and buried it where it would not be found. When archaeologists opened that vessel 3,000 years later, they found thousands of tiny black seeds inside, each barely a millimeter across. Outside the dig site, growing between the stones of the ancient path, was the exact same plant, unchanged, undefeated. 3 millennia had passed and the plant had not needed to adapt because it was already perfect. By the 7th century BC, those same seeds appear in the Samian Heraion, one of the most sacred sanctuaries in ancient Greece. This was not a casual discovery. Seeds left in a sanctuary were an offering. They were considered precious. By the 4th century BC, the botanist Theophrastus was writing detailed cultivation instructions for farmers across the Mediterranean, telling them to sow it in April alongside their essential crops. He did not categorize it as a weed. He categorized it as food. The Romans cultivated it across 3 continents. Medieval Europeans ate it at every meal, not as a delicacy, but as a staple. The way we eat bread, the way we eat rice. In 1288, a scholar named Bonvicin de la Riva compiled an exhaustive census of everything the city of Milan consumed in a year. This plant appeared on that list, not as a curiosity, not as a footnote, as a foundational food that the city depended on. This is purslane, Portulaca oleracea. The plant that solved a problem scientists did not yet know existed, and the one we were taught to destroy. Sometime after 1492, purslane crossed an ocean. At least, that is what the history books assumed. When European settlers documented it growing in Massachusetts in 1672, the assumption was that it had arrived with the colonists, another import from the Old World. Then archaeologists went back to the soil. Seeds found in Ontario dated to 1350 AD. Seeds found in Kentucky dated to 800 BC. 2,500 years before any European ship reached the northeastern coast of North America, purslane was already growing there. Native Americans had been cultivating it alongside sunflowers, squash, and chenopod's as part of the Eastern Agricultural Complex, a sophisticated pre-Columbian farming system that European settlers never recognized as farming because it did not look like their farming. 2 populations separated by an ocean, with no communication, no shared written records, no trade routes, both independently decided that this plant was essential, not optional, not supplemental, essential. What did they know that we forgot? In 1960, a physiologist named Anshel Keys launched what became one of the most consequential nutritional studies in the history of medicine. The 7-country study tracked 12,763 men across 7 nations over 50 years, searching for the reason why some populations had almost no heart disease, while others died from it at epidemic rates. The results dismantled every assumption the medical establishment held at the time. The farmers of Crete consumed some of the highest fat diets ever recorded, more than 35% of their total caloric intake coming from fat. By every nutritional theory of the 1960s, they should have been dying in extraordinary numbers from cardiovascular disease. Instead, they had the lowest cardiovascular mortality rate Anshel Keys had ever measured, lower than Japan, lower than Finland, lower than anywhere on the map. For 2 decades, scientists credited olive oil. They credited the monounsaturated fats, the Mediterranean sunshine, the slower pace of life, the Mediterranean magic, as they called it, a comfortable explanation that asked no further questions. Then in the 1980s, a new research team went back to the frozen blood samples from the original study. They were not looking for cholesterol. They were looking for omega-3 fatty acids, What they found changed the entire interpretation of the data. The Cretans had 3 times the omega-3 blood levels of the Dutch participants, but they were not eating 3 times more fish. They were eating purslane every single day, in salads dressed with rough olive oil, in stews that simmered for hours, sautéed with garlic in cast iron pans, fed to their chickens and their goats. The animals ate purslane. The people ate the animals. The entire food system of an island that had almost no cardiovascular disease was running on a plant that grew wild in every field, between every stone wall, along every unpaved road. Dr. Artemis Simopoulos analyzed purslane in 1992. The numbers that came back from the laboratory seemed impossible. 300 to 400 milligrams of alpha-linoleic acid per 100 grams of fresh leaves. That is 5 to 7 times more omega-3 than spinach, 15 times more than iceberg lettuce. It is the richest vegetable source of omega-3 fatty acids ever measured. But then the analysis produced something even stranger. Land plants do not make EPA, eicosapentaenoic acid. That is a marine omega-3, the kind you get from fish and algae from creatures that live in cold, deep water. It does not come from something growing in a crack in your driveway. Purslane makes EPA. Not in large quantities, just traces, but it makes it. When Simopoulos published the findings, other scientists questioned whether the samples had been contaminated. They had not. The numbers held. Beyond omega-3, purslane produces 7 times more vitamin E than spinach, 6 times more beta-carotene than carrots, and contains melatonin, glutathione, potassium, magnesium, and calcium in concentrations that place it among the most nutrient-dense plants ever analyzed by modern science. The Leon Diet Heart Study tested whether the Cretan diet could actually save lives in a controlled clinical setting. 605 patients, all recovering from heart attacks, were divided into 2 groups. Half received the standard low-fat cardiac diet recommended by mainstream cardiology at the time. The other half received a Mediterranean diet rich in purslane, walnuts, and omega-3 fatty acids. After 5 years, the Mediterranean group had 70% fewer deaths. Not 70% fewer heart attacks, 70% fewer deaths from all causes. The study was stopped early. Stopped because keeping the control group on the standard cardiac diet had become ethically indefensible. They were dying at a rate the researchers could no longer justify. So why is purslane not in every grocery store? Why do most people, when they see it growing in their garden, reach for herbicide instead of a salad bowl? In 2022, Dr. Erica Edwards and her team at Yale University published findings in the journal Science Advances that rewrote what we understood to be possible in plant biology. They had been studying purslane because it was doing something that should have been impossible. It was thriving in extreme drought conditions while simultaneously growing faster than nearly every other plant around it. To understand why, you need to understand the basic mechanics of how plants feed themselves. Most plants on Earth use C3 photosynthesis. It works efficiently when water is abundant, but it loses water rapidly through the pores in its leaves. Corn and sugarcane evolved C4 photosynthesis, which handles high temperatures and is more water efficient, but still requires consistent moisture. Desert plants like cacti evolved CAM photosynthesis, an elegant solution to the problem of arid survival. They open their leaf pores at night, when temperatures are cool, to collect carbon dioxide, then seal them shut during the heat of the day to prevent water loss. This is why cacti survive the desert. It is also why they grow almost imperceptibly slowly. They are conserving everything. Scientists had known for years that purslane could perform both C4 and CAM photosynthesis. They assumed, reasonably, that the plant used C4 in one part of the leaf and CAM in another, keeping the 2 systems physically separated, the way you might run 2 different electrical circuits in the same building but never let them touch. When the Yale team mapped gene expression across individual purslane cells, they discovered something that violated everything the field believed. Both systems were operating simultaneously in the same cells. C4 photosynthesis running during the day for rapid growth. CAM photosynthesis running at night for drought survival. And the products of the nighttime CAM reactions were feeding directly into the daytime C4 pathway. The 2 systems were not separate. They were integrated. Dr. Edwards said it plainly in her published statement. This is a very rare combination of traits and has created a kind of superplant. No other species on Earth has been found to do this. The same enzymes recruited for entirely different biochemical jobs, operating in different roles at different times of day within the same cellular space. It is like discovering an engine that runs on gasoline and electricity simultaneously, not by alternating between them, not by switching back and forth, but by burning both at the same moment in the same chamber. Purslane survives on 1/5 of the water that corn requires. It grows in soil so saturated with salt that most agricultural crops would be dead within days. A single plant produces 200,000 seeds. Each of those seeds can remain viable in the soil for up to 40 years, waiting. Every stem fragment that falls and touches bare ground will root itself and become a new plant. You cannot kill it with heat. You cannot reliably kill it with drought. One university study on solarization, the practice of covering soil with clear plastic to superheat it and sterilize it of all biological life, concluded with remarkable honesty that if purslane died from the treatment, everything that could possibly go right had gone right. It is that resilient. It is that stubborn. It is that alive. This is the plant the herbicide industry declared war on. The global herbicide market reached $40 billion in 2024. Bayer, Syngenta, and Corteva all manufacture and sell products specifically formulated to kill purslane in lawns, gardens, and agricultural fields. The chemicals have names that sound clinical and safe: metolachlor, isoxaben, indazeflam, and 2004-D, the same synthetic compound developed as a chemical weapon during the Second World War, which a company marketed to American homeowners in 1947 as a convenient solution for unwanted broadleaf plants. Homeowners associations prohibit purslane by name in their community bylaws. Agricultural extension offices publish eradication guides with photographs and recommended spray schedules. The entire institutional infrastructure of modern horticulture, from the lawn care industry to the agrochemical corporations to the neighborhood committee that sends you letters about your garden, treats purslane as an invasive enemy to be eliminated, not because it damages ecosystems, not because it crowds out native species, but because it cannot be controlled, and therefore it cannot be owned. You cannot patent purslane. Its genetics are ancient and distributed across every continent. You cannot modify its seed coat to make it sterile, forcing farmers to purchase new seeds each season the way they purchase hybrid corn. You cannot create dependency on it because it creates none. It has been reproducing freely for 4,000 years, and it will continue reproducing no matter what any corporation decides to do about it. Every other significant omega-3 source on the market is a controlled commodity. Wild fish populations are collapsing under the pressure of global demand. Farmed salmon requires massive infrastructure, enormous quantities of feed, and significant financial investment. Flaxseed oil oxidizes and goes rancid within weeks of opening. Fish oil supplements sell for $20 a bottle in pharmacies and health food stores across the world. Purslane grows at no cost, in every climate zone where human beings live, in soil that would reject any cultivated crop. And it produces more omega-3 per acre than any farmed plant in existence. It asks for nothing: sunlight, occasional rain, the mercy of not being sprayed. The plant that could fundamentally transform how humanity grows food in a warming world is classified, officially, as the world's most common weed. Half the world never forgot what purslane is. In India, it is called kulfa, cooked with lentils and spices into dishes that have not changed in centuries. In Greece, it is glistrita, dressed with lemon and oil and eaten in the heat of summer, exactly as the Cretans in Ansel Keys's study ate it. In Mexico, it is verdolagas, sautéed with garlic and dried chiles and served alongside pork in a sauce that tastes like something older than the country itself. In China, it is maquishian, documented in agricultural texts going back thousands of years, still cultivated, still eaten. Across Turkey, Iran, and the broader Middle East, it appears in meze spreads and summer salads and home remedies passed from grandmother to granddaughter without interruption. These cultures did not rediscover purslane. They never lost it. The forgetting was localized. It happened in the industrialized West, and it was not accidental. When climate scientists project which agricultural regions will fail first as global temperatures rise and rainfall patterns destabilize, they point consistently to semi-arid zones, places where annual rainfall is already marginal and trending downward. These are precisely the conditions under which purslane thrives. Corn and wheat require between 20 and 30 inches of rainfall per year to produce viable yields. Purslane completes its entire life cycle on 6 inches. Soybeans begin shutting down photosynthesis when temperatures exceed 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Purslane accelerates. At the moment when the crops that feed the majority of the world's population are becoming unreliable, the plant that could replace them is growing in your driveway. Learn to identify it. Purslane has thick, smooth red stems and fleshy, paddle-shaped leaves that lie flat against the ground in a dense mat. The stems are never hairy. When you break one, the interior is juicy and almost translucent, like a small succulent. The flowers are tiny and yellow, usually hidden where the leaves meet the stem, so small that most people never notice them. It tastes faintly lemony, slightly mineral, with a satisfying crunch when raw. Stop poisoning it. If it is growing in your garden, consider why you are removing it before you reach for anything to spray. If it is coming up between your patio stones, eat it instead. Harvest it young within the first 6 weeks of growth, when the leaves are at their most tender and their nutrient concentrations are highest. Eat it raw in salads. Sauté it in olive oil with garlic, the way the people of Crete have done for centuries. Add it to smoothies. Pickle the stems. Stir it into soups and stews. Dry it for winter use. Save the seeds. A single plant that you allow to mature will produce hundreds of thousands of seeds. Collect them in late summer when the tiny seed capsules begin to open. Store them in a cool, dry place, and you will have enough to plant an entire garden next spring, or to share with everyone you know. Teach someone else to recognize it. Every person who learns to identify purslane is one more person who understands that food does not only come from stores. One more person who understands that the most nutritious plants on Earth are often the exact ones we have been systematically taught to destroy. The herbicide industry does not want you to know that the world's richest vegetable source of omega-3 fatty acids is growing for free in your driveway. The pharmaceutical industry does not want you to know that the supplement they sell for $20 a bottle is a pale, processed imitation of what purslane provides whole and raw and alive. The agricultural industry does not want you to know that the climate-resilient superplant scientists are spending billions of dollars trying to engineer through genetic modification already exists, has existed for 4,000 years, and is considered a weed. It is called purslane. Portulaca oleracea. It is in your driveway right now, between the cracks, alive and patient and waiting. And here at Vintage Botanics, we believe the most important things are often the ones we were taught not to see.